I consider him mentally unbalanced and a grave liability. He must be relieved of command immediately.
August 1943. One British field marshal tried to end an American general's career, quietly, through a private letter to the Prime Minister. Bernard Montgomery sat in his Sicily headquarters and wrote to Winston Churchill, not through military channels, not to his commanding officer, directly to Britain's political leadership. The subject? General George S. Patton's fitness for command. Historical records indicate Montgomery questioned Patton's temperament, judgment, and suitability for high command. Some accounts suggest he recommended Patton's removal from theater. He was attempting a political end run at the highest level of Allied government. The letter reached Churchill. It was read. It was considered. Then it backfired. Here is what makes this impossible. Allied commanders were supposed to work together. Montgomery and Patton were partners in defeating Nazi Germany. Professional disagreements happened through proper military channels. But Montgomery bypassed the chain of command. He went outside the system to attack a fellow Allied commander's reputation. He tried to use political power to sideline a military rival. Churchill's response was not what Montgomery expected. The letter that was supposed to end Patton's career revealed something about Montgomery instead. This is the story of why one general tried to sideline another through political means, and how that decision damaged the accuser more than the accused. Montgomery tried to end Patton's career through a letter to Churchill. The accusation backfired. Subscribe for World War II stories, where political moves reveal more than they intend. North Africa to Sicily. Bernard Montgomery and George Patton first worked together during the North African campaign. Both commanded armies. Both were aggressive, confident leaders who believed their methods were superior. The friction was immediate. Montgomery was methodical, every operation carefully planned. His Eighth Army doctrine emphasized set-piece advances with minimal casualties. British forces had fought since 1939. Experience taught caution. Patton was speed and shock. American doctrine emphasized rapid exploitation and industrial firepower. American forces were new to European warfare, but brought overwhelming material advantages. Different philosophies, different nations, different egos. The Sicily Plan. When Allied forces planned the Sicily invasion, Montgomery received the lead role. His British Eighth Army would drive up the eastern coast toward Messina. Patton's Seventh Army would protect his left flank. For Montgomery, this reflected military reality. British forces had Mediterranean experience. American forces were still learning. For Patton, this was humiliation, a supporting role, protecting Montgomery's flank instead of pursuing victory independently. The resentment was personal. Patton believed Montgomery's caution wasted opportunities. Montgomery believed Patton's aggression wasted lives. Neither man hid his contempt for the other's methods. The race nobody ordered. July 1943. The invasion began. Montgomery advanced methodically up the eastern coast. German resistance was heavy. Progress was steady, but measured. Patton drove across western Sicily like his career depended on speed.
Field Marshal, this document has been compromised. Compromised? How? Enemy intelligence. We must act. The reports confirm our suspicions. Indeed, the situation is more critical than we thought. We must act swiftly.
Because it did. He was not staying in supporting role. He was racing Montgomery to Messina. Montgomery's staff watched American progress with alarm. Patton was covering ground faster, taking risks Montgomery would never accept, achieving results Montgomery could not match. August 17, 1943. Patton reached Messina first. An American general in a supporting role had beaten the British commander to the primary objective. For Montgomery, this was more than tactical embarrassment. It was professional humiliation in front of both armies. The rivalry became something darker, something personal. August 3rd and 10th, 1943. Patton visited evacuation hospitals. He encountered soldiers suffering combat fatigue. He slapped them, called them cowards. Some accounts describe him threatening one soldier with his pistol, while others note he made verbal threats in front of medical staff. The incidents were witnessed, reported. They reached Eisenhower within days. Montgomery learned of them through British liaison officers, and he saw opportunity. This was not professional disagreement anymore. This was documented behavior. Physical violence against soldiers, threats, loss of composure in front of witnesses. Montgomery had spent 2 weeks watching Patton humiliate him in the race to Messina. Now he had evidence that Patton's aggressive personality was not just tactical preference, it was a discipline problem. The calculation. Montgomery made a decision. He would not handle this through military channels. He would not discuss it with Eisenhower. He would write directly to Churchill. This was calculated. Churchill controlled British strategic decisions. If Churchill questioned Patton's fitness, pressure would flow down through diplomatic channels to Roosevelt, to Marshall, to Eisenhower.
This report is clear. The enemy has advanced. We must mobilize at once.
Montgomery could eliminate his rival without confronting him directly. Political pressure instead of military authority. A quiet end to Patton's command. For a man who prided himself on careful planning, it was his method applied to alliance politics. Remove obstacles through superior strategy. He sat down and wrote the letter. August 1943. Historical accounts indicate Montgomery's letter to Churchill questioned Patton's fitness for command. The exact wording remains debated, but multiple sources describe concerns about temperament, emotional control, and judgment. In essence, accounts describe Montgomery as saying, "This man shows poor discipline under pressure and is too undisciplined for high command." He was not sending intelligence. He was sending a recommendation for removal. Some biographers suggest Montgomery used strong language about Patton's reliability under stress. Others describe it as questioning his judgment in crisis situations. The letter was not subtle professional criticism. It was an attack on Patton's competence at the most fundamental level. Montgomery apparently cited the slapping incidents as evidence. He may have referenced Patton's aggressive statements and tactical risk-taking. The letter reportedly recommended Patton's removal or reassignment away from critical operations. Based on accounts of Montgomery's headquarters. An officer who worked in Montgomery's headquarters later described the atmosphere after Messina. Montgomery was furious that an American general in a supporting role had reached the objective first. The humiliation was personal. When news of the slapping incidents arrived, the officer recalled Montgomery's reaction. Not horror at the violence, satisfaction at having evidence. The officer reflected that Montgomery saw opportunity where others saw scandal. What Montgomery expected. Montgomery expected Churchill to act, to raise concerns with Roosevelt, to pressure American command, to create circumstances where Patton's removal became politically necessary. He expected the alliance's political machinery to eliminate the military rival he could not defeat on the battlefield. The letter reached Churchill through official channels. It was delivered to 10 Downing Street. Churchill read it. Because he understood what that letter would authorize, if he answered it the wrong way. And then Churchill did something Montgomery never anticipated. The Prime Minister's Dilemma. Winston Churchill was 70 years old. He had managed coalition warfare for 3 years. He understood military personalities. More importantly, he understood what Montgomery's letter revealed. Churchill saw 3 things immediately. First, the slapping incidents were serious. Second, they were being handled through proper military channels. Eisenhower had already acted. Third, Montgomery had bypassed his commanding officer to complain about an Allied officer to a foreign government's political leadership. The third point mattered most. The pause. According to accounts from his staff, Churchill read the letter and set it aside. He did not respond immediately. For 2 days the letter sat on his desk. Churchill's advisors waited. Montgomery, in Sicily, waited. The matter hung unresolved, and Patton did not even know Montgomery had gone to Downing Street. Churchill knew this was not only about Patton. It was about how the alliance would handle power. The weight. Act on Montgomery's letter, and Churchill would validate bypassing military channels. He would undermine Eisenhower's authority. Ignore it, and legitimate concerns would seem dismissed. But only one choice preserved the command structure. Churchill's calculation. Churchill discussed the matter with his military advisors. They noted several facts. Patton had taken Sicily faster than expected. American forces were performing well. The slapping incidents were serious, but being addressed by Eisenhower through proper discipline. And Montgomery had violated basic principles of coalition command by going outside military hierarchy. Churchill's inner circle, an aide later described Churchill's deliberation. The Prime Minister read the letter carefully, multiple times. He recognized Montgomery's concerns had some basis. The slapping incidents were genuinely problematic. But the aide recalled Churchill saying something that shaped his response. Strong generals create friction, but managing that friction is leadership's purpose, not elimination of the generals. The question was not whether Patton had flaws. The question was whether those flaws were being properly managed through military channels. The decision. Everyone involved wanted a different outcome. On the third day, Churchill composed his response. According to historical accounts, it was measured but clear. The slapping incidents were being handled appropriately by Eisenhower through military discipline. Montgomery should focus on his command and work through proper military hierarchy for concerns about Allied officers. The matter was noted, but would not be escalated to political channels. Churchill did not dismiss Montgomery's concerns entirely, but he did not act on them. He did not contact Roosevelt. He did not pressure Eisenhower. He did not create the diplomatic crisis Montgomery's letter could have sparked. The letter achieved nothing Montgomery intended. Worse, it revealed his willingness to use political means to eliminate military rivals. Churchill noted this. Others would too. Word spreads quietly. The letter's contents remained private, but the fact that Montgomery had written to Churchill about Patton became known among senior Allied leadership. Not the details, just the act itself. At Schaeff, people did not repeat the words. They repeated the move. Eisenhower learned of it. American commanders learned of it. The perception formed. Montgomery had tried to bypass military channels to eliminate a rival through political pressure. For someone who prided himself on proper military procedure, Montgomery had committed an extraordinary breach of protocol. The irony was not lost on those who knew. The opposite effect. Churchill's refusal to act validated Patton. It suggested the slapping incidents, while serious lapses, did not disqualify him from command. The British Prime Minister had read concerns about Patton's fitness and declined to intervene. Eisenhower kept Patton in theater. By September, after requiring public apology for the slapping incidents, Patton was being prepared for command of Third Army. His career not only survived, it advanced. Meanwhile, Montgomery's relationship with American commanders deteriorated. He was already viewed as difficult and overly cautious. Now he was seen as someone who would bypass chain of command for personal rivalry. The letter that was supposed to end Patton's career became evidence of Montgomery's poor judgment about coalition politics. The personal cost. Montgomery had miscalculated badly. He thought political channels would amplify military criticism. Instead, they exposed his methods as improper for coalition warfare. Churchill's measured response protected the alliance, but it also revealed Montgomery's willingness to prioritize personal rivalry over proper procedure. That revelation damaged his reputation with Allied leadership more than any tactical disagreement could have. Patton had beaten Montgomery to Messina. Then Montgomery tried to eliminate him. The letter remained largely unknown during the war. Both generals continued their careers. Montgomery commanded British forces through Normandy. Patton commanded Third Army across France. But the relationship never recovered. The personal animosity deepened. After the war, the letter became known through memoirs and historical research. Montgomery's attempt to use political channels against Patton is documented in multiple accounts. Churchill's wisdom. Churchill's handling is viewed favorably by historians. He could have escalated, could have created diplomatic crisis, could have undermined Eisenhower's authority. Instead, he paused, weighed both options, chose the path that preserved command structure over immediate intervention. This was leadership that understood personality management mattered more than personality elimination. His 2-day pause demonstrated that wisdom did not come from quick judgment, but from careful consideration of consequences. Patton's vindication. Churchill's measured non-response was vindication. The British Prime Minister read concerns about fitness and declined to act. This suggested concerns were not as serious as Montgomery believed. Patton commanded Third Army through campaigns that vindicated his aggressive methods. The slapping incidents were serious lapses, but they did not define his capabilities. Montgomery's lesson. Montgomery learned the limits of political intervention in military affairs. His letter accomplished nothing except exposing his methods. The accusation backfired, not because it lacked basis, the slapping incidents were real, but because the method violated coalition warfare principles. The alliance survived. Churchill's diplomatic silence proved more powerful than Montgomery's written concerns. The general who tried to eliminate a rival through political channels succeeded only in revealing his own willingness to violate proper procedure. August 1943. Montgomery wrote a letter attempting to end Patton's career. Churchill paused, considered the consequences, and chose wisdom over immediate action. That pause mattered. It gave time for judgment instead of reaction. It preserved alliance structure instead of fragmenting it over personality conflict. One man tried political maneuvering to sideline a rival. Another chose quiet wisdom to preserve coalition command. History remembers which approach served the alliance better. The letter revealed more about Montgomery than Patton. That revelation was the consequence. The accusation backfired completely. Montgomery bypassed military channels to eliminate a rival. Churchill paused, weighed the consequences, and chose wisdom. The letter revealed more about the accuser than the accused. Subscribe for World War II stories, where character is tested by power.